One of life's simple truths is that writers write, meaning that in the world of writing, you have to produce. You might say that to generate quality, you have to take a long road of quantity. So it's kind of not unlike that requirement in Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, the notion of getting your 10,000 hours. Meaning, if you want the title of writer, you have to put in the work. Now, I consider that entirely fair and just. And in that light, the winner of this year's Reverend Robert F. Griffin C.S.C. Award, which is set aside for those alumni who have brought regard to the university on the basis of their writing. This year's award winner has more than done the work. So to call this humble gentleman's contributions to the art of essay writing voluminous is an understatement that borders on oratorical malpractice. How voluminous, you ask? Allow me to demonstrate by showing you a little list that came attached with the nomination penned by his loving father. Now, I have to remind you that this is merely a list of the titles of his work. And so it not only reflects his 3 published books and the raft of awards that they earned, it also reflects a textbook on essay writing, and for good measure, a few books that he translated. Then his list of essays, speeches, presentations, theses, both ones that he wrote and ones that he read for others and edited, it goes on for 28 pages. This is single-spaced, 12-point type, regular-sized borders, right? We all know about increasing border size so that you can get credit for a 10-page essay. The guy has done the work. So, in a word, today's award winner is not only the world's leading evangelist on the art of the essay, he's also its foremost practitioner. He's a once-in-a-generation talent whose productivity, again, is unparalleled. Some creative people worry about the advent and the onset of artificial intelligence and the impact that it'll have on the creative arts. But I doubt that the smartest computer on its best day could ever match the wit, the heart, the humor, and the tenderness of his work. It's obvious he's never had writer's block, but we pray for the sake of the essay that he never does. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you the winner of this year's Father Griffin Award for Achievement in Writing, with a gentleman who carries with him a degree in physics from Notre Dame, earned in 1993, a master's in English from BYU, and a PhD in English from Ohio University. He's currently serving as a professor in essay writing at BYU, where he is inspiring the next generation of essay writers. So please join me in giving a warm, high-volume Notre Dame welcome to Mr. Patrick Madden III.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. That was, I think, appropriately silly. When I was asked to submit a photo, I didn't quite realize the use it would be put to, and it's gone now. The upside-down floating Magritte hat thing, it was all a joke. But I suppose that's suitable for the type of life I want to live and the type of things I want to inspire to. I really am humbled and grateful, very happy to be here. And thank you very much to Dolly Duffy and to Amanda McKee, Andrew Barlow, the rest of the Notre Dame Alumni Association, those who looked at the application and the nomination and chose me for this award. I'm very, very grateful. I'm really happy to be back with a few of my former professors, one from physics, Dr. Umesh Garg, one, the only creative writing class I took here at Notre Dame, Dr. Sonia Gurnis. Grateful to have a more recent writer friend who's a current professor here, Dave Griffith. And, thankful especially for my family, my dad and Karina, who are accompanying me today as well. And thanks to all of you, the people I haven't even met yet, for your attention. It's great to have a patient and attentive and polite audience to hear what I have to say. I'm especially glad to receive the Reverend Robert F. Griffin C.S.C. Award because I know him. We were dorm mates for 4 years in Stanford Hall. And I did have some interaction with Father Griffin as we would cross in the hallways or out on the quad. But I must express my regret because I was a knucklehead and I didn't quite realize the fount of wisdom that he was. And so my interactions with him were always superficial. I wish I'd have sat with him and had longer conversations. The silver lining is that many of his essays that he wrote for Notre Dame Magazine are collected in this volume, The Pocket-Sized God, published just recently, I think, 2016-ish or so. And so I've gotten to know him a little bit better over the last few months. And there's more where that came from, too. I even found that the Observer is archived and searchable on the Notre Dame website, and he had a weekly column there as well. I find in his book and in all essays kind of holy inquiries and conversations, in his case with God and with his fellow human beings. So I want to take the time I have with your attention to make a pitch and try to convince you. I think we share a lot of values. So my pitch will be for the essay. It's a form that is often misunderstood, even misnamed. People punish their students with things they call essays. And I would say that's actually antithetical to what the essay is and has always been. The essay instead is a sort of a form that opens our attention to the world, helps us to not resolve things, pin them down, but to open up to further possibilities and connections. And so that's my first goal of my remarks today. My second is to enact the dream of a good friend and mentor of mine, Brian Doyle, who won the Griffin Award in 2011, who often dreamed and schemed that he could get an invitation back to Notre Dame alongside me and our other friend, Barry Lopez, to do a reading. And with Brian's death in 2017 and Barry's death in 2020, that became an impossibility unless I pull this move today. I will give some of my time over to each of them, and maybe we can pay attention to the ways in which their essays are enactments of the kind of openness and attention that the essay often performs.
When I was young and just beginning to travel with indigenous people, I imagined that they saw more and heard more than I did, that they were overall simply more aware than I was. They were. If my companions and I, for example, hiking the taiga, encountered a grizzly bear feeding on a caribou carcass, I would tend to focus almost entirely on the bear. My companions would focus on the part of the world of which at that moment the bear was only a fragment. For me, the bear was a noun. For them, it was a verb, the gerund bearing. I might not recall something we'd all seen a half hour before, a caribou footprint in soft ground at the edge of a creek, say. But my companions would remember that. And a while after our encounter with the bear, say a half mile farther on, they would notice something else. A few grizzly bear guard hairs snagged in scales of tree bark. The event I was cataloging in my mind as, quote, encounter with a tundra grizzly, they were experiencing as an immersion in the current of a river. lesson in those experiences was not just for me to pay closer attention, but to remain in a state of suspended mental analysis, resisting the urge to define or to summarize. On occasion, I would become so wedded to my thoughts, to some cascade of ideas, that I actually lost touch with the details that my body was still gathering from a place. The ear heard the song of a vesper sparrow. The mind, pleased with itself for identifying those notes as the song of a vesper sparrow, was too occupied with its summary to notice that the ear was still offering. The mind was making no use of the body's ability to be discerning about sounds. So the mind's knowledge of the place remained superficial.
Now, tundra grizzlies are one thing, but I think we can apply the same kind of openness and attention to everyday life. And that's what my friend Brian does in this brief essay called Holding Hands.
One time I spent a whole day looking for people holding hands. It turned out to be one of the most amazing days there ever was. Right off the bat, I saw lots of teens and 20s holding hands, couples of every sort and stripe, but I'd expected to see that, as holding hands at that age is really a way of public speaking, you know what I mean? So that what began to knock me out all day was everything else. The 3 tiny school children holding hands as they all waited for the bus. A young man leading an old man who was maybe his dad. 2 women who were maybe 80 holding hands as they gingerly inched down the museum stairs. A guy holding out his hand to another guy as the second guy got out of a cab that was perched over a gully filled with rainwater. A dancer and a poster holding her hands out to 2 other dancers. A dad walking along the street with a tiny girl holding his pinky. And the dad half bent down as he walked, listening to her talking. 2 girls walking along, holding hands until they split by a lamppost and then reached for each other again, which was cool to see. A man and a woman coming out of a movie theater and reaching for each other without even looking. That was either cool or they took each other for granted, I don't know. But the sight that nailed me good and finished off the day and stays with me still weeks later was a boy maybe 12 years old or so with a boy maybe 9. I figured they were brothers going to school with their backpacks bouncing as they ran past, the older boy in the lead, but his hand trailing out behind him like a lifeline for the gasping kid brother. That was so cool, it made me laugh. Partly because you could see that the older brother was hip to the fact that they were seriously going to be late, unless they ran like crazy, but no way was he about to leave his dopey kid brother behind no matter what. But it was the younger brother's face that I can see right now, a wild, sweet face with just about everything in it, laughter at how fast they ran and worry that they were going to be late and mom would be mad, and outward intent to keep up with his brother. And maybe you'll say I'm dreaming or thinking wishful or whatever, but I swear he had a glint of mad love for his brother in his face. That kind of shining thing, some kind of absolute joy, just that they were holding hands. Well, they rocketed by so fast they were gone before I could get turned around to see if they made the bus or not, but that glint in that boy's face, that stays with me. That kid was thrilled to have a hand in his hand. And really, when you think about it, what could be cooler than that? Amen.
My connection with Notre Dame goes back even before I was born. My dad was a classmate of Barry Lopez's, in fact, class of '66. And when he and my mom married, just soon after my dad's graduation, I was born. My mom especially took care to make sure that for the longest time, I thought college equaled Notre Dame. I didn't understand that was a larger category that other institutions could belong to. And so I loved Notre Dame before I even knew a thing, really. My mom's final resting place is just about a quarter mile south of here in the Notre Dame Cemetery. And so I want to share a deeply personal essay about her. I wrote it in the form of a word search puzzle, a functioning word search puzzle. At the repast, things were allowed to be jovial once more. Too much solemnity already that day. Still, there came a moment when I was expected to speak in memory of my mother. I had dreaded this. I noted my friends' and family's likely expectations for the writer's extemporaneous eulogy, and I made a perfunctory attempt to speak, but ultimately I simply couldn't find the words. The word repast shares a Latin root with pasta, antipasto, pasture, and thus refers simply to the act of eating generally. A repast is a feast, not necessarily after a funeral. But etymologies being what they are, forensic rememberings, tracings through time, who can miss the internal redundancy of a repast, a past once again, a miraculous return to or of what once was? Although she was often anxiously engaged in many good causes, my mother still found leisure time to read or in later years do the crossword, calculate Sudoku, find words amidst the jumble. Harmless, indolent mental entertainments, wastes of time. Left behind in the bathroom she shared with my father, atop a stool we find a yellow and yellowing ultimate word search decorated with her handwritten notes. From his indolence, Borges imagined a library that includes all verbal structures, all variations permitted by the 25 orthographical symbols. Such a system would contain, amidst leagues of senseless cacophonies, all that it is given to express in all languages. Imagine the hidden treasures of wisdom, everything ever known or unknown, every stray thought, even our very selves, translated into dormant words awaiting discovery. If, as Borges promises, when writers die they become books, then perhaps even my mother, who never wrote more than notes, may yet be recovered in my books, or perhaps discerned and remembered, reconstituted textually from the vast gallimaufry of words, both intended and accidental, and thus I may repass our lives together and find her again in the paradisiacal library. My solitude is gladdened by this elegant hope. So I hope you're on your way to convinced of the greatness of essays, something Father Griffin well knew and practiced. Thank you again.